Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles.
We're now moving into continuing in the second part of Psalm 19, this very highly structured statement of the power of Torah and what it can do, how can it affect people. All right, so we began, I'm just going to do a quick repeat of, remember we're doing, there's verses 8, 9, and 10, which have an A and a B to them. And also recall that I mentioned that there is an interesting repetition here of words that begin with a mem. In the second part of 8 and 9, all four of them, Meshivat Nefesh, Machimat Peti, Mesamche Lev, and Meirat Einayim. Mem, 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 mem. Okay? And so you have it. Okay. So the Torah of God is Tamimah, is perfect, is whole, is complete. And that starts us off with the initial statement that the theme here, of course, is the significance and the importance of Torah. Now, the next line, Eidut Adonai Ne'emana, okay, the testimony. Here, I have to agree completely with Rabbi Siegel and his translation. The JPS, I think, blew it. Because Eidut, I can tell you exactly what that means. And it is a verb, a variation of testimony. So it means the testimony of God is ne'eman, is faithful, is truthful. Okay? So what is Eidut? Eidut is a Torah word for the law, the tablets. And they're luchot ha'edut. They are the tablets of testimony. Testimony to what? To the covenant. So this is a covenantal allusion. It's not happenstance. And it's specifically referring to the testimony of the stones, of the tablets on which possibly the entire Exodus law code was on. I'm of the belief that it wasn't just the Ten Commandments, okay? Because when Moses reads the covenant to the people, he's reading something that he wrote down on a scroll as well. And it's the laws that precede that in Exodus 20 through the Ten Commandments and Exodus 21 to 23. I believe that is the code. That is what was on the tablets. That's a lot. But if you've seen ancient tablets, and I may have never held one, nobody has, I don't think. Maybe archaeologists did when they found them. But if you look at ancient Middle Eastern tablets, they are written small letters on front and back all over the place. And so being able to put that on there, but that's a different subject. Okay. But the Eidut definitely is testimony. Okay, so the Torah is testimony to and so as it were, the tablets to which this might allude are the living testimony to the Torah of God, and it's the first written down part of those of that law. Okay, all right, and then it says this is really interesting, Machimat Peti. They make wise the fool, the ignorant one. Okay, in other words, they can open up a person's mind to be able to think. It's really interesting. And I guess the point is, if a person who has been uneducated can be helped to tap into their intellect, which may never have been developed, right? Then that learning literally opens up their capacity to absorb wisdom and to think wisely. And it just hit me that is what this might be talking about. And it's true. I mean, I've seen that with students, that when you push them and get them to open up their minds, and suddenly you realize that there is an intellect, there's a mind there that has not been generated. You gotta generate the energy for the motor to run. And that's what Torah does. I find that very, very interesting. And the assumption is that the chokhmah, wisdom, is a significant part of what Torah offers. All right, moving on. Pikudei Adonai Yesharim, the precepts of God are straight. They're truthful. They are, honest. And here it's interesting. B'samchei lev, they cause a heart to rejoice. I mean, have you ever thought about law giving you joy? Right? Normally, you think about laws, you think about limiting you, right? Controlling you, right? Ruling you. But here it's saying it makes you joyous. Fascinating. How do we understand that? Laws make your heart rejoice. Okay, Rick.
I'll go. So, if you have laws and nobody is above the law, then everybody can be happy that the laws mean something and we're all treated the same way under the law. So
that's
kind of topical, but yeah.
No, right. No, that's correct. I mean, you can rejoice and you have a freedom, theoretically, from concern that there will be chaos in society. If you have a law-abiding society, then law is actually freeing you. Remember, the rabbis, when they talk about charut, the Hebrew word charut, which means etched into the stone, relating to the Ten Commandments or to the commandments. Okay, the rabbis say al tikri charut ela cherut. Don't read it as etched, but read it as freedom, because law makes you free, because you have freedom to operate in a lawful way as everyone else. There's respect, it's orderly, and you can find joy in life because the amount of stress and anxiety is reduced. So yes. Okay, Bert.
Traditionally, the Torah is the story of how we're supposed to live, in addition to the story of the Jewish people,
yes,
the creation of the universe. And that guidance is something that I think Jews celebrate. I mean, look at Simchat Torah. We dance around with the Torah, in the Shema and in prayer every day. We take on, we say, the yoke of the mitzvot.
Right.
But it's with joy, and it's supposed to be with joy, because I think, as you say, if there is no law, not only does each person have to make it up themselves, but society crumbles.
Right, exactly.
I mean, we just heard that with the story of Noah and the flood, and what's the answer to that is Sinai.
Right, exactly. That's right. And that's the foundation of that midrash, right? Cherut, freedom. And so I think that's worthy of rejoicing. And then it says mitzvat Adonai bara, right? I love this translation here. The commandments of God, the instruction of law, the instruction of the Lord is lucid, right? Me'irat einayim, because it enlightens your eyes, right? Lucid has to do with light, right? So I mean, it enlightens you, right? And it's great. I love it.
If only it were clear.
Yes. Hurrah. Ha, ha, ha. Because it can mean clear also, yes. Anyway, so yes, indeed. But that's why you got to dig a little, I mean, look, this is poetry.
Mm-hmm.
The author is developing, first of all, there's a rhythm here, but also there's a message that hidden in Torah are all of these potentialities that can be drawn out to have a powerful impact on a human being. right? And, lo b'shamayim hi. This isn't in heaven, right? It's not in heaven. It's here. It's right here. And it's interesting because throughout the generations, there have been people from other faiths or people who were heretics within the Jewish community who felt that the Torah is this restricting, physical, worldly thing without any saving qualities, any redeeming features. And what this kind of a statement makes is no. It's saying this is the opposite. The law is implicit in the law is amazing power for good, for beauty, for joy, and so forth. Now, I don't know, I'm not going to say that the poet here, the psalmist, is specifically responding to groups like that. But I think what he's responding to is, yes, he's in biblical times writing this. And biblical times were fraught with an ongoing tension between the monotheism of Judaism and all that represents, and the belief in one God, and paganism, from the Torah's perspective, was just the antithesis of that. It's a chaotic world, because every god thinks that they're above the law, and there are multitudes of gods, and there's no control. Whereas if you have, and there's no room for true rejoicing, that would be the way the Torah, this author would be presenting that, I believe. Okay, all right. First of all, Barbara, and then Leon.
Hi. Would Torah have been like the first set of laws ever given to a people? I mean,
no.
The early days.
No. Stop. No. We have codes that existed. One of the great codes earlier in the second millennium, the Code of Hammurabi.
That's before Torah. Okay.
That was way before Torah. In fact, Bible scholars will look at the book of Exodus, see the imprint of certain elements of the Code of Hammurabi there, because that code became a universal code throughout the Middle East. And so, what the Jews often do, in addition to developing their own perspective, they will repurpose concepts from other things, but they will enhance. So, for example, the Code of Hammurabi was intended for the upper classes of ancient Mesopotamian society. Okay. If you read it, I mean, I haven't studied it, but I read about what it says. And it's intended to be for the elite. This is the law for the elite. Whereas the Torah flips that and says, no, right? The poor and the rich alike stand as equals in the face of Torah. And that is an absolute rejection of that principle of elitism. Okay. And you find a lot of that, like, for example, the concept, when Abraham and then Isaac say that their wives are their sisters, right? So, I mean, Nahum Sarna, great Nahum Sarna, who wrote a very wonderful book on Genesis. It's part of the JPS series. He makes note, and he was not a radical, critical theorist in Torah. I mean, he accepted modern ideas, but he really was more traditionalistic. But here he says very clearly that what the Torah did here, there was in ancient society the concept of the wife sister. It's found in Babylonian, and they found it in certain Babylonian records, but it's also Egyptian, where a person, this is a little bit different, sorry. In Egypt, a king could take a daughter and make her his queen. He could marry his daughter and elevate her to a queen. Okay, but so this notion of multiple stati, whatever you want to use the word, for women, it has much, where it was in existence well before Torah. So the answer is yes, there were law codes in existence before that. Okay, Leon.
Yeah, I wanted to talk for a second about lucid. My translation is unblemished, and lucid.
Yeah, well, that bara
nicer.
Yeah, you're right. Right. It could be that. It means pure.
It means pure, exactly.
Yeah, but I think
lucid fits well with it, illuminates the soul or it restores life.
Right. So I think it's a good point, but I think what they were picking up on, and this is something that both JPS and Benji Siegel agree upon, and I think they're picking up on because lucidity. Remember, I'm not going to reach over to the dictionary now. Very often these terms have multiple layers of meanings.
Yeah. I looked it up in Brown, Driver, and Briggs.
Yeah. Did you check the Curler Baumgartner though?
No, I did not.
You should get that. That's the newer one. Okay. It's wonderful. Sometimes it's confusing because it's so detailed, but it's great. And it's based on what that was written in the 70s and early 80s. So the knowledge of Semitic languages between the original, the old one, and that, it's a long time. Anyhow.
The other thing I wanted to mention is I thought the idea of Abraham's claim concerning having been married to his sister didn't they find in archaeology
yes,
marriage contracts that simply stated he was adopted into the family, which means that he had a part of the inheritance. And
yes.
I thought that was the best of marriages.
Well, that was the Mesopotamian, exactly. That's what I was alluding to. Yeah, exactly. So that's paradigm. But again, you can see he's playing around in the Torah. It's not a normative thing. This is being done to protect the woman from the possible damage of a king or the local ruler abusing her or killing the husband to get to the wife. Remember, there was a threat.
We know that from David.
Huh?
We know that from David.
Yes, exactly. Hello.
Yeah.
Lahavdir. Yes.
Lahavdir.
All right. So I have Mike Harris and then Tybal.
If you look at the word lucid and translate it define it the way I would, which is not that it generates light, but that it is clear and allows light to pass through it, then it makes sense to say that if the instruction of the Lord is lucid, that light passing through it will light up your eyes.
Right, but how do you say light? Yes, how do you say light in Latin? Lux.
Right.
Lux.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the purity, that's very good. I mean, I like that. That's nice. That satisfies both of us. That's very good. Because there is the notion of purity in that word as well. It's absolutely correct. Good. Oh, Tybal.
It's actually a quick one because I'm trying to find the dictionary you just cited. Is it from Brill, the academic publisher? It's 5 volumes, and there's a third author, Kohler, Baumgartner, and Stamm?
No. No, this is Curler Baumgartner. It's 2 volumes.
Oh, never mind. The same people, Curler, Baumgartner, and a third one, Stamm, now have a 5-volume one.
Oh, okay. They just must have broken it down to 5 volumes. That's it. Yeah.
Though they call it, of course, the Old Testament as opposed to the Hebrew Bible. But
yes, right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because if you look at the volumes, they're 2 big, heavy volumes. It's easier that they appear in 5, especially for people with aging wrists and joints.
Yeah, I just read to the bottom, and it does say this set is replaced by the 2-volume set.
It's replaced by...
Oh, wait. All right, never mind. I don't want to take more time. I'll figure it out.
Okay, all right. I mean, yes. Okay, moving on. Now here you could argue, it's a repetition, but you see, I think the reason why bara was chosen with light, because now you have yirat Adonai tahora. All right, fear of God is pure. Okay, and you don't have any specific. Well, you could say nemanim and yesharim. Yeah, it could be repetitious, but anyway, the fear of God is pure. You know, I mean, think about that. It's almost an oxymoron. How can fear be pure? Fear is a negative type of a thing. So how do we understand this?
If you translate it as awe,
yes,
as opposed to fear, which is another translation of ira, then it makes a different kind of sense.
It could be. Right. Okay, that thought actually crossed my mind. Absolutely. Good. Okay, who else? Nobody? All right, anyway, it's possible, but on the other hand, it could be that tahora in the sense of purifying. In other words, it purges you. I mean, if it has to do with something we would like tshuva, right? You think about yirat shamayim, fear of God, fear of the consequences of not following God's law, can actually impel you to want to stop doing that and to repent and do tshuva. And in that respect, it is pure in that it purifies. And think about that one. Okay? All right? But omeret la'ad, and it's, I see your hand, yeah. And it stands forever. In other words, it is unchanging. Fear of God, because God is forever. God, the force within God is forever. Therefore, it's eternal. And it's always available to tap into, to motivate people to rid themselves of the impurities of sinfulness. Okay, Leon and then Mike Harris. Leon, you need to unmute.
I try not to be intrusive.
That's fine.
I got outlasting time, and I kind of like that. It's like God, it outlasts time.
That's good. That's very poetic, but it's the same idea, but I like it. Yes. Because God is what God was before time, right? I remember Genesis chapter 1 is the beginning of time. Time is invented by God. And clearly, astronomers, some astrophysicists tell us that about a trillion years from now, the universe will disappear.
Well, 15 billion years ago, it appeared out of nothing.
Yeah, and it'll go back to nothing.
Yeah. And actually, for 370 million years, there was no light.
Yes, but that's a drop in the bucket.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Mike.
Yes. What if you read the Tahara in the sense of Tahara, the ritual of cleansing of a body, that it's akin to that fear of God while we're alive cleanses us the way Tahara cleanses the body after we've died.
Well, but also you when you go into a mikveh and you come out, the whole point is that you are now tahor. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to deal with, it's not just the cleansing of a body of a dead person, but the human body itself physically can be purified. That's what mikveh is about, right? So I accept your point, but I would expand that. It's not simply in death. Mm-hmm. And you can maintain, if you maintain halakha, maintain the law and the fear of God, then the filth of sin is minimized. Okay, and that's the whole point. Is when you send the body back, it's the same thing when a person is dying and you do a vidui. The purpose of the vidui, it's kind of a spiritual tahara, right? It's a pardoning of sins, a confessional. right? And this whole notion that God will forgive. So, yeah, I mean, death, the onset of death involves both physical and spiritual cleansing. But the point is, it's more than that. It's part of living. And living a life of purity is an ideal, that we probably never can achieve. And that's why we have tshuva, we have to be constantly on top of it. But that's us, because we are, flesh and blood, as they say. All right. Now, continuing. Mishpatei Adonai emet. Yes. The judgments of God are truthful, are truth. They embody truth. So this is, of course, the case. Tzadku yachdav, and they are altogether righteous. Okay? So that would be the same. Now you talk about death. At burial, you do the tziduk hadin, the justification of God's judgment. Because at a time when a person dies, people yell and scream, where's God's justice? Why did this person die? It's normal, not unusual. So the answer is no. Ultimately, there is judgment. There is justice. Okay, and that's what this is saying. Okay. So here you have then this amazing litany of powerful forces that are implicit in Torah that can literally make human life, bring ultimate meaning into human life, because ultimately the first two lines, 8a and 8b, right, the eights, they are establishing the basic principles, right? But it goes on, though, beyond Torah, to talk about all of these different elements that make up in the big picture of Torah, and start talking now about little things, the smaller elements in life, your heart, your eyes, right? The daily judgments that you deal with. Okay, and so it's an amazing praise of Torah and all of in the abundance of its capacities to create meaningful God-directed life. And finally, this is interesting, the bottom line, the end of this, Hanekmadim zahav mipazrav, they are more precious than gold, and indeed the finest gold. And they are sweeter than honey, and the honey that drips directly from the honeycomb. Right? So, and this is it's an amazing thing. It's almost saying, if you really appreciate Torah with all of its subtleties and everything, ultimately you're going to live a life of sweetness and of great worth living. And it's beautiful. And, again, it takes something, the burdens, what, you mentioned before, the yoke of Torah, Y-O-K-E, yeah, the yoke of Torah. It's a burden. But what this is saying is, in the end, though, no, it's sweetness. And it's ultimate wealth is in Torah. And it's a very beautiful ending, positive side of the whole thing. Tybal.
So I thought I had learned, and this doesn't contradict it, I just think it's interesting that whenever we see honey, because of the 7 species, it's most often date honey, not bee honey. But this is obviously bee honey.
Oh, yes, right. That's right. Yeah.
So, and do you think that's why, the honeycomb word could be in there just because it scans better in its poetry, but do you think that since the default was usually date honey, that's why it's honeycomb, bee honey?
Could be both. I don't know. It could be both. Just a general statement, something that is, indigenous to the tradition, part of the tradition, and at the same time is sweet. So the answer to your question is yes. Okay, Bert.
I was just going to say the flow of this psalm, as you pointed out, is unbelievable, because remember the first, the first 7 verses are about the universe and God's handiwork, And then we get to God's laws and God's precepts, whatever. And now we're getting very individual and personal in what we're about to get into. And the transition is honeycomb and very, very close things that are close, at least not today, but were close to people's life at that time. So it struck me, you had pointed that out, and I'm feeling it a lot.
And that's good. And gold and honey are gifts from God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I see a hand up over there? Renee, go ahead.
I was just curious whether that's why we use honey when we do the Upscheren. And when we did Rafi's Upscheren, we made an olive on a plate, right? And they lick the olive after they say it's an olive. Is that why the connection is with honey?
Yes, exactly. The sweetness of Torah, that tradition. Yeah. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Good. Right. All right. And as Bert mentioned, so now, right, we went from the universal. Hold on a second, AJ. There was the universal. Then the Edut. Remember, Edut is the covenant statement between God and the people. The people who accept Torah, right, have this amazing, wonderful gift from God. So it's now focusing on the people in the collective. Now we move to the individual, and that's the author of the song. And you'll see the person switches. He's talking about himself. Okay, now it's really personal. Yeah. AJ.
The use of the term honeycomb brings to mind that the honeycomb itself is an example of a closest pack structure.
Yes.
In crystal, in nature, one sees these geometric shapes which enable a closest pack structure where nothing is wasted.
Yes.
There are no interstices, as it were. It's all part of the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that helps you in some way, but just an observation.
No, I think it's a good point, because what it is saying is, remember, it's saying that the most minute type of thing, and here bee honey is a good thing, because the bee is a tiny little creature, relatively speaking, and yet the bee operates with a community. But the bee and the community are also part of this amazing world that we celebrated in the first part. It too is an expression of we, in a sense, you're right, this is a step back into nature, but the common denominator that it has with the Torah thing is, as you say, it's a structure. It allows the bees to operate in a society where they all work together, and it's generally a harmonious society, as far from our perspective at least, right? And it's an order, and it's a structure. It's an absolute. It's something that non-humans designed and built, and so yes, it's a miracle. I will tell you, and some of you have heard me say this. Yehuda Halevi, right? Yehuda Halevi. In his book, in the Kuzari, his book of, I call it theology, it's philosophical theology, he explains, he says, everybody looks up to the heavens to see an orderly universe that is, a miracle, an evidence of God's activity, of God's brilliance, his power. But he says, look at the honeybee and look at the ant if you want to see miracles. That's miracle, right? The honeybee and the ant, because they're these tiny little animals who live in an organized society, and they build their structures, and they have an order, a pecking order, and so forth and so on. And that's part of God's world also. And in a sense, it's more miraculously than the human beings. Today, we might look at that and say, maybe there's some wisdom in it. Okay, anyway, yes, but I think, AJ, no, you're right. And I think remember, you heard me say this also many times, part of the beauty of the mitzvot and the brachot in particular is that it reminds us that all of these things, these material things that are meaningful to our lives, positive things, by saying blessings, we appreciate them. We don't take them for granted. Part of the system is don't take the beauty of the physical world in its totality for granted. And that starts with the tiniest little things. I mean, a honeybee. Yeah, I've gotten stung by honeybees, and there are people who unfortunately are allergic to that. I'm not, thank God, but there are people who are. I'm sorry. It's the imperfection in the world. But at the same time, the honeybee, is a miraculous thing. Halevi said it because you look at the darn thing and you see this fat body with little wings. And you say, how does that fat body fly with those little wings? I mean, I can see a butterfly. Of course, a very small body and big wings. That makes sense. But the honeybee, it's a miracle that thing flies. It's a miracle that they can make a honeycomb. And it's so beautifully designed. Yeah. So the Judaism's message is also appreciate the world that you got. Okay. But now we're going to go deep into the neshama of this person. And there's pain here. Okay. It's almost a reversal of the impact of this Torah. Okay. And it's a struggle. Really. I'm not going to say it contradicts, but it brings the issue of Torah down into a very personal perspective on its impact on a human being. So what does he say? Gam avdechan nizhar bahem v'shomram ekev rav, right? So he's saying, your servant, that is me, I am who's speaking. I am very careful about them, okay? I'm cautious. I'm careful with them. With what? With the laws, with Torah, with the laws of Torah. And I understand b'shomram ekev rav. And in following them, as you have just indicated, by the nechmadim mepaz metukim mitvash, right? Sweeter than gold, sweeter than honey, more precious than gold. That there are wonderful results. There are wonderful products of following Torah. I grant that, okay, and I appreciate that. However, shigiot mi yavin, ministarot nakeni. Who understands mistakes, errors? Okay, how can I understand this? Ministarot nakeni, from hidden things, hidden acts, hidden faults that are within me. Cleanse me of these things, okay? I make unintentional errors all the time. I am prone to error. He's saying, I'm a human being. I'm imperfect. Hence, I'm going to make mistakes. And these are not willful mistakes. Okay. Now, technically speaking, if you remember the liturgy of Yom Kippur in particular, right? That you say, I'll hate biyodim uvelo yodim. For the sins that I incur upon myself knowingly and unknowingly. Okay, and that's saying the same thing. I do these things, and it turns out it's a sin. It's the wrong thing. It's a mistake. So cleanse me of this. Basically, what he's saying is, help me understand myself better so I can avoid these unintentional things that screw everything up. Okay, he's seeking out God's help. God, be my therapist. Give me the tools to figure this out myself. Please. I recognize this. Okay, Tybal and Bert.
Please, sorry, I didn't follow how you know it's unintentional as opposed to just any kind of...
two things. Shigiyah means an error, and nistarot are hidden.
But a hidden can just be something that no one else noticed. I mean, a hidden could be intentional.
No, but it's hidden from you because you say, cleanse me of these things.
Oh, got it. Okay.
He's asking, it's within him, not something you do to somebody else that they don't know. Now, it may be that way, but the point is, from his perspective, the speaker here, the poet, is saying, help me deal with these mistakes that I made. Okay, Bert, and then Leon.
The JPS translation I have here is clear me of unperceived guilt. And I'm looking at the Sachs translation, which is more meaningful to me at least, cleanse me of hidden faults.
Yes, that's exactly.
And that is, we all, as you said, we all sometimes make mistakes. And we have to be able as human beings to deal with them.
Right.
And sometimes we don't even realize they're mistakes.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what Benji Siegel does the same thing too.
Right.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah. JPS says, well, in a sense, who can be aware of errors? Yeah. Clear me. Yeah. Oh, you're right. See, JPS says unperceived guilt. Benji says, clear me of hidden faults.
I prefer the clear me. At least that means more to me in English.
Yeah, yes, of course. And that's what it should mean. It should mean. Right. But now, okay, who's else? Okay. Oh, wait, Leon and then Rick. Hans, unmute. See, that's your new star.
Yeah. הנסתרות לשם אלוקינו והנגלעות לנו לעד.
Yeah.
That's what this reminded me of very much. And my translation was, unwitting sins who can grasp, of unknown actions clear me.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
Yes, it's good. Agree. Yes. All right. And Rick Muller.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to say the next verse is the intentional. So we don't need to worry so much about whether it's unintentional or not, because the next one is, so it's gam this and gam that.
Yes.
So it's coming.
That's right. So gam mizedim chashol chabdecha. Protect me from my intent, my willful sins. I mean, I err, I sin willfully. And that's another weakness that I need help with. So this guy's really asking. This is very 21st century stuff, I would say. Very 21st. But the point is, he's realizing it. He's not in denial. Remember, Pharaoh, that was Pharaoh's problem. He was in denial. Get it?
Denial.
Yeah, it's not just a river in Egypt.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, but he admits it. Now, Zaydim, it's interesting because Zaydim can mean evil people. But it means the root there is the same as Zadon, which means willful sinful act, a willful act of evil. Okay? So Zaydim here does not it's not saying guard me from evil people, but guard me from willful sins on my part. And it's pretty uniform in terms of its interpretation. That's what it's saying, right? And then he says, Al yim shalubi, let them not rule me. Let this tendency towards sinfulness, known willful sinfulness, as well as hidden sinfulness, let them not rule me, because then I will be purified, and I will become tamim, whole, pure, Viniketi, and I will be cleansed, mipesha rav, from great sin. Okay, so he wants help dealing with his sinfulness. Powerful stuff. Tybal.
So Tom, by the time of the rabbis, because that's the simple son. I mean, Tom all through this psalm is the highest, among the highest of praise. But I don't see it that way in the Haggadah, and I bet I'm not unusual. Did the meaning change by rabbinic language?
Well, remember, simple has many meanings. Tom, okay, yes. again, this is one of these things where you open up the lexicon and you have a, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, etc. Different meanings. The tamim, can be Torah Adonai Tamima. There you had it. In other words, basically it's beautiful here. What he's doing is picking up on the same word as Torah is tamim. It's complete, it's full, it's whole, it's perfect. Tam means I will be whole again. Okay? Or I will not be, now tam can mean, if you say, it's sort of the notion, not complex. Everything fits together. But tam can mean, because then it's simple, right? When you have contradiction, when you have forces pulling in both directions, okay? That's not tam. When all are together and they're more simple type of a situation. So that's how that evolved. I can tell you that there are interpretations in the traditional interpretations of the Haggadah, which say that the Tam is actually a person of pure faith. They use it in that respect. Not simple, but this is a guy whose faith is pure. And in that sense, it's a positive thing, right? And so you give him just a basic statement, because for him, it's not complex. It's simple. It's pure. I have faith. I believe. Okay? And then there are, by the way, the interpretations that actually see the She'eino Yodea Lishol. You can save this for Pesach. That the one, and by the way, in the pecking order in this midrash on the Haggadah, obviously at the bottom of the ladder is the Rasha. Next comes the Chacham, who knows a lot. Next comes the Tam, whose faith is pure. And finally is She'eino Yodea Lishol, the one who doesn't know how to ask questions, because he says, what can I ask? I am a human being. I stand before God, who is beyond my capacity to fully comprehend. So not only is he whole in his faith, but he's humble in the presence of God. And that's the highest form. They flip it. Interesting. Thank you for raising that. That was good. All right, anyhow. So here we are. And then now, of course, now that this is all, he has faith. He has faith. 1 second, Rick. I see your hand. Just let me finish this up. He is faithful. And he's not arguing. He's not angry at God. He's struggling. He's saying, God, I struggle. Help me. Okay. And then finally, he says, yet let my spoken and unspoken words be before you. Imrei fi, right? The words that come out of my mouth. Hegyon libi is the unheard words of the meditations in my heart. God, who is my rock and my redeemer. So basically saying, redeem me of myself. This is a form of redemption. It's a complete, when you usually say, Adonai Tzuri v'Go'ali, Tzur Yisrael, Komo be'ezrat Yisrael, Rock of Israel's all right to help the people, right? Help, bring us redemption. Bring the Mashiach. That's not what it's saying here. He's not talking about the Messianic era. He wants his own. He wants to find himself in his own Messianic state where he can be freed from sin, be pure of evil, and serve God wholly. Holy, powerful, amazing. Okay. All right. Rick.
The verb yimshalu, ruling, right?
They will rule over you.
Yeah, when I see that, it's like the sun and the moon in creation, they're ruling over, right? Uh-huh. So it's a callback to the Shemesh and the Yareach earlier. If the poetry is supposed to do that, I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Oh, it's
so it could be against the pagans who worship the sun and the moon. Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of like a dig against them. Don't let the sins rule over me, but don't let the sun and the moon and the sun god and the moon god rule over me either. Is that too much of a stretch?
It's interesting.
Going back to the heavens part?
Yeah, but the thing is, the sun, it's just the sun, right? And the sun is presented here simply as a, he is running, that is a bridge. We talked about this. The presence of the sun here is talking about how his light spreads all over the place, the same way that these unheard words from God, from the heavenly host, spread all over the place. Okay? And they picks up on the word katseh, which means the ends, right? There in verse 5, right? So the words are already out at the ends of the world. And now he's saying the same thing in the sense that the sun is providing this heat, this warmth. So this is a continuing bridge from the heavenly down to the earthly. It's not the issue of ruling is not implied here.
Yeah. Well, when you said, Judaism is against the paganism, I just thought maybe this was a dig against the pagan gods.
I heard you, but I don't think it's what it is here, because he's not. I mean, the sun is us here. The sun is presented as a bridegroom, in a bridal canopy that God made for him, and he's finished the beginnings of his relationship responsibility as a husband to a wife, and now he's out there with energy because he's energized by the joy and the positive physicality of his relationship with his wife and so forth. And now he's saying, hey, whoopee, and all that light spreading all over the place, all that warmth. It ends on positive, but that's a bridge, as I said. And this is not just me. It's a bridge into the worldly thing, which the part is. But again, the worldly thing of the Torah is not simply worldly. It is elevating the human being. And it ends with this notion of this elevation into a realm of light and gold and sweetness and beauty and wonderful stuff. Okay, so it's in other words, that's saying that a human life in terms of this world can be beautiful and meaningful and filled with godliness now here. But then, of course, the last part comes and says, it's not that easy. It takes the idealism of the second component, the second segment, and sort of pours cold water out and says, yes, the potential is there, but we have one problem. We are people. Interesting. You see, the ideal is now, the real confronts the ideal. And that's why he has to cry out for help, because he wants to achieve the ideal, and in the condition that he's in, he can't. Open honesty. Talks about how open and honest and truthful God's law is. Amazing thing is now the author is being honest in admitting his own weaknesses. His therapist would be very proud. Okay, Bert, and then Tybal, and then we move on to Psalm 29. Hybe, turn on your mic, Hybe.
Sorry, I'm struck by by this couplet, that it's the words of the psalmist's mouth and the prayers of the heart, that the two have to go together, that you can't just be talking and you can't just be praying or hoping from your heart, but that it takes both. And this is like the whole soul. It's the physicality of it and the passion of the heart. Very powerful stuff.
Right. And
a wallop.
Go ahead.
No, I said it packs a wallop.
Yes, it's a wallop. It is. Well, the whole bottom, that whole part there is a wallop. But it also picks up, again, you have there is a frame here. It picks up on the unspoken words. It refers to Amari, right? We saw that at the beginning of the psalm, right?
But the words are not heard. The
silent words that were not heard, correct. But it brings that in as well. Hegyon Libi. Those are the silent words. So it really picks up on the struggle in the first part between the spoken and unspoken concepts, and within the human being, as part of one's complexity, perhaps, is the fact that there's an unspoken part of us and a spoken part.
And then there's the image of the rock, which here is my rock and in other places our rock.
Yeah.
And I always think when I see rock of Moses hitting the rock.
Oh, no, but this, I understand. No, but sure.
Which you're not supposed to do.
No, but without the Bible, you're right.
Oh.
No, put that aside. It's another meaning. But in the Bible, God is a rock,
Right. Oh. You lean on, hard, strong.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, Tybal.
All right, Rabbi Joel, unknown middle name Rembaum. How many authors do you think there are in this 150 Psalms? And if you think there's more than one, what else do you think the particular psalmist wrote in addition to this one?
I can't answer that. I mean, no, answer one. Yes, there are. Because you've got Psalms, and this is based on the theme, language, what the psalmist is aware of. Okay. You've got Psalms that clearly were written after the return from the exile, when there's a prayer for the immediate rebuilding of Jerusalem, right? And there are Psalms that have the next Psalm we're going to read, Psalm 29, could be an older Psalm, and you'll see why in a minute. This is a very sophisticated Psalm. And I'm thinking that, I can't date it. It's too complicated. The language, there's not much in here that really is what we would call archaic style. So I wouldn't say that it's very old. But again, I am not the world's linguist. I don't pretend to. And what I know about linguistics in Hebrew and some Semitic languages, I've picked up from my reading. But I'm not a systematic student of that stuff. But the point is, this psalm is sort of basic biblical Hebrew. It's not old. It's not late. And so, therefore, it's just amazingly powerful. Yeah, but yes, there were many. Look, the thing is, you even have different. We mentioned this last time. There's psalms that are associated with David, psalms that are associated with Bnei Korach, psalms that are associated with Asaph, psalms that are not associated with anybody. Okay, and it's a wide range. But so there are clearly multiple authors. Yes. Okay, we're now finished with Psalm 19. So to the author of the Psalm, Yeshikoah, you did a great job.
One more thing, Rabbi. The rabbis liked the last sentence so much that they put it in the prayer book, right? It's at the end of the Amidah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. No question. Yes.
I always like to point that out to the kids.
Thank you.
Where the stuff comes.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say that Hashem put it into the prayer book. That was done by man. They grabbed it.
I said the rabbis put it in.
Oh, yeah. I thought you did it differently. Okay.
No. God gave us the capacity and the liberty to write prayers. Indeed. Yes. All right. This is a real walloper too. Okay. What was I going to begin with? Yes. So in the late 1930s, when they discovered Ugarit, which is this Canaanite city that was on the coast of what is Lebanon today, and its trove of literature. Well, it was on parchments, it was on stone, et cetera, et cetera. And they took a look at the Baal poems that were woven into that trove of written works in a Semitic language. Okay, Ugaritic is a cousin of Hebrew, Semitic language, and so it became easier to understand it. Anyhow, some of them leapt, however you pronounce it, to the conclusion that the psalmist who wrote this was actually lifting things directly out of those ancient documents, that he had read them. It was the enthusiasm of immediate discovery. And very often the enthusiasm of immediate discovery is superficial. And subsequent generations of biblical scholars looking at this psalm said, no. The author may have been aware of expressions of Baal worship. Remember, these are poems that deal with Baal. Because Baal worship didn't disappear during biblical times. It was there prominently at the beginning, then it died out, and later on, with Ahab and his lovely wife Jezebel, Zevel, that means the island of garbage, right? Oh, you Hebraists, E is an island, Zevel is garbage. I just made that up. There are.
I like it.
Yeah, thank you. There are there are linguistic explanations of it, which I have forgotten as to what it means, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Anyhow, no, there was a burst of Baal worship at that time because of the queen and the king who was willing to keep his queen happy. And that's been, known for a century, for decades, generations. So the point is that this is not a plagiarism of Baal literature. If anything, it's the opposite. It is a huge pushback against the imagery of Baal in those poetry, in those poems. I mean, for example, Baal lives on a mountain in the north, okay? North of Canaan, okay? Well, you're going to see this reference to northern mountains in this, okay? Baal is the god of thunderstorms, okay? Powerful winds. Baal makes war against the depth, Tiamat, the goddess of the deep. And all of these notions are woven into this psalm. But it is clear, and here's this word again, that this was all repurposed. The author of the psalm took all that stuff and twisted it around and made a resounding statement that there's only one God and he did everything. And the fact of the matter is, and you'll see, we'll talk about this more in detail, God's name is mentioned 18 times.
18.
11 verses. 18 times. I venture to say, and I say this without having read every single passage in the Bible, but I'm going to guess this is the most concentrated use of the 4-letter name of God, Yud-He, Vav-He, anywhere in the Bible. It is exuding in Hashem recognition. And I think that's the point. What he's saying is, Baal, BS. Okay? No, 18 times. This is Hashem. That's all. Be all and end all. And we will see that it's really focused on the ultimate power of God. And it expresses itself in fascinating ways. And I had to do some research to explain certain elements here, or to gain some more deeper insight into them, that I've never done before. I have done research in seismographic maps, right? Maps that map out fault zones that generate earthquakes. And you'll see why in a minute. And right here in my little sweaty palm, I have the map.
Can we get copies of those?
No. Yeah,
okay.
I can give me. I have. I mean, it'll Yeah, I can do it. I mean, if I remember, somebody send me the email, I'll send them out. Okay, those who wish. If you want to, just send me an email. All right, here we go. Mizmor LeDavid. Remember again, I'm going to say it again, in Psalms 3 through 41. The vast majority of them are Mizmor LeDavid. Okay, here we go. Havel Adonai b'nei Elim, Havel Adonai kavod va'oz. Ascribe unto the Lord, O you b'nei Elim, ascribe unto the Lord glory and strength. Okay. The Lord is used because it's Adonai, which means Lord. Okay, but every time we say that, it's Yud-He Vav-He, or as I write in English, YHVH. Okay, it's not God, it's Hashem, the name, 18 times. So it's not amorphous, right? It is clearly defined. Now, God is amorphous, yes, but the point is, it is by design, personal. Not Elohim, not El. There is El once. You'll see it right now. So, so ascribe to Hashem b'nei Elim. So the JPS says, "O divine beings," and Benji Siegel says, "Sons of deities." Okay, divine beings may be more of an interpretation. Sons of deities is a literal one. Okay, this is probably a process, some sort of repurposing. Remember, we mentioned the notion that the name El, right, is applied to God, but El was the boss, the head of the pantheon in Canaanite religion, father of Baal. Was El. Okay. In fact, the term El Elyon, highest El, is definitely associated with El in pagan literature. So that's repurposed. So what does B'nai Elim really mean? Well, what's B'nai? Here's the interesting thing. It has a number of meanings. It can mean sons, right? Banim. But it can also mean members of a specific cohort of people who are committed to a common cause and or activity. Okay? So, for example, there's an organization called the Native Sons of the Golden West. Real. And they preserve documents and things and buildings that go back into California history. All right? So, but they were not the descendants of the Golden West. They happened to live there, right? They were born there. And so they call themselves the sons. All right. So in other words, it's an identifying word of a group of people who have something in common, something that they believe is important. Okay. The same thing, you have the, what is it called? The Daughters of the Confederacy, an organization, I don't think it exists anymore, who were, well, they were.
Yeah, the DAR does.
Huh?
Daughters of the Republic, Revolution, yeah.
There's also the Daughters of the Golden West. My grandmother was one of them.
Oh, so that's the female version.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joel, can I ask one question?
Wait. The point being, it means people who are part of a group that share a common interest of some kind. That's important to them. Okay. And the Bible uses it that way. We'll get to it more. Okay, Barbara.
Yeah, you mentioned about Baal. We've talked about Baal, and you said that he was in the mountains more in the north.
Yes.
I always thought that the gardens in Haifa of the Baal people were because that's where they believed Baal was.
Oh, Baal was all over the place.
That's Baha'i. That's not Baal.
That's Baha'i, right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
No, but the fact is,
okay.
Baal is, we have a reference to this Baal Peor, right? That's where there was a horrible attempt on the part of the Midianites to introduce pagan worship into the Israelites in the desert, okay? And so Peor is the area there. So this is the Baal of the area called Peor. And Baals, there are lots of Baals all over the place that are associated with different names, because those are the places where different manifestations, different expressions of Baal were. But it's all basically the same God, but with variations on the theme. But that was widespread around ancient Israel, but also within it. And that was a major struggle during the second part of the biblical period. Okay, so, all right, so Rick.
Can I also add, Laurel and Hardy had a great movie, The Sons of the Desert, where they put on these fezzes and they tell their wives they're doing something else, but they're on TV marching down the street in Hawaii. It's such a great movie. Laurel and Hardy, I highly recommend it. But they were the Sons of the Desert, and they have this little group.
Okay, but in the Bible, let's get back to the Bible. You have a thing called B'nai HaNevi'im. All right, it's mentioned in 2 Kings, Malachim Bet, chapter 2, referring to members of a particular group of men who studied with a prophet and practiced prophecy. So their B'nai means the disciples of. Okay, so it has all kinds of different nuances here. So what is B'nai Elim? B'nai Elim, I want to suggest, is a cohort of heavenly beings who comprise part of Hashem's court. The notion that God had a court of heavenly beings is widespread, and that's what this is talking about. And this is not in any way a compromise on monotheism. The angels, and there are different levels of angels as well, were part of this divine court. Okay, so they were there. That's how the ancients believed, God operated. God was a king. A king has a court, right? And, a support group. And the rabbis picked up on this as well. When God says, let us do something. So the rabbis say God is consulting with his court. This is the rabbis saying that, with his courtiers. So that's a notion that begins in the Bible and carries down into rabbinic time. And I think that's what B'nai Elim means. And I'm going to pick up on a point that Benji Siegel makes and to help to further illuminate that. Okay, quickly, Barbara.
When you read this, there's commas after ascribe to the Lord, O divine beings, comma, and then you're ascribing to the Lord glory and strength. So I'm not... In a way, it reads that it's the Lord who caused the divine beings to come, and the Lord caused the glory and strength. Is that a correct reading?
No. Ascribe here means associate with God. And now when it says, "Oh, divine beings," it's like saying, "Hear me out, O people. Hear me out and listen to my word." It's a style, okay? And what they're saying here is ascribe to the Lord means associate with God, or, make, how shall we say, put a flashlight, put a light on the fact that God is glory and strength. Emphasize it. Make note of it.
Is it saying ascribe to, oh, divine beings, ascribe to the Lord?
No. He's speaking to his courtiers. He's speaking to these people, and God is I'm sorry. The speaker, whom we don't know who this is. We don't know who the speaker is. The speaker is talking. The guy, the person that wrote this is speaking to the members of God's court, the B'nai Elim, and telling them what they should be doing with respect to how they comprehend God, their boss. And we'll see why. And that leads me into what I wanted to say. And that is, Rabbi Siegel suggests that this unknown speaker who may be, and this is not the author of the psalm. The psalm, the author is writing it as if it is these are the words of the speaker. Who could the speaker be? Well, we know that there were different angels, hierarchies of angels, different concepts of that flow from the Bible times into rabbinic times. Okay, so this could be one of the archangels, the highest level of angel, who comprise God's kitchen cabinet, if you will. Okay, and so this guy is talking down to the lower levels of divine beings, who perhaps are too proud of their own divinity, and they take themselves too seriously. And so he's saying to them, oh, you B'nai Elim, know your place. I'm going to have you learn and say after me what God is really about. Because that's what's going on here. There's a sense that the B'nai Elim, they've gotten their head too big. Okay. And it's the old story, the Hesed. You know what a Hesed is?
Yeah.
What's a Hesed?
When I was a kid, one guy told me when he goes to the men's club meetings, and whenever somebody stands up and they shouldn't be speaking, he goes, hey, you, sit down there.
That's right. But I heard it somebody in shul. Guy,
okay.
It's the sergeant at arms during services, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, sit down there. It's old, what was his name? Oh my God. Oh, yeah. Irv Dorshaw.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Was our old Hesed. This is the guy who would close the door and leave it closed and guard it when he was told to do so. If somebody was standing up at the wrong time, sit down there. Okay. That kind of
sit down there.
So this guy, so there's the old joke. I'm sorry, I got to tell this joke. So it's now Yom Kippur, okay? And people are getting ready to fall Korim, right? They're going to prostrate themselves in shul, right? So, okay. So the chazan goes down, and the rabbi goes down, and the president goes down, and the vice president goes down, and the secretary of the board, and the treasurer, and all these guys, the lead officers, are sitting on the bima. And so they look at the back, and the Hesed, he went down. So the treasurer looks at the secretary and says, look at Moish back there. Who does he think he is so important that he has the chutzpah to go down? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yes. So that's basically, these guys are like the Hesed. Okay, I've just made that up. But that's what I really think, though. The B'nai Elim were a group of people who were, shall we say, imbued with divine spirit. If they were heavenly people, heavenly hosts, right? Like an angel. Angels are literally, my friend Benjamin Summer will say that there are angels who appear who are actually not embodiments, but they're like surrogates, or of God. Literally, God is speaking from that angel who's standing in front of Abraham. So God is present within that angel who looks like a human being, right, but isn't. Okay, or perhaps the angel that Jacob wrestled with. They're manifestations of the divine, but they're fleeting, and they're not God, but they are, in a sense, many temporary mini gods, because they come, they do something, you don't hear them again. Okay, and that's the understanding of many concepts of angels. They have a task, they do it, and they go away. Okay, anyhow, the point though is, so think of Moses when he comes down the mountain after spending all that time in God's presence. Okay, what does the Torah say about Moses? This is the second time he comes down with the second set of 10 commandments. What does it say? His face was illuminated. he had to put on a mask because he scared the people, that somehow they'd be looking at something of divine whatever. So he wore a mask. And when he went into the tabernacle, he took it off. Okay? That's what it says in the Torah, in Exodus. And so the point was, the theory is, if it's not expressed, but he was in God's presence all this time. That energy was absorbed into him. Okay? And he became godly. But was he God? No, he wasn't. But that could be what these guys are, because they work, it's like they work in a radioactive setting, right? And they don't need to worry about it, all right? But they absorb the radioactivity, but they're immune, okay? And that's what they've done. They absorb divinity, but they're not gods. But they think they're gods. That was the problem. And so the archangel here is telling him, you don't know who you are. I'm going to tell you, because I'm going to tell you who God is, and that will put you in your place. You understand what I'm saying? That's what this is. And it's a repurposing of that concept that may have been used by pagans in talking about sub-gods in a pantheon. But biblical theology, I'm not talking about pop theology, popular theology in biblical period in different areas in Eretz Yisrael believed in a super God and second level gods. We know that. That's not what this is saying. They're using that term, but it's making clear, 18 times clear, that Baal ain't a god and you guys ain't gods. Because how many gods are there? One. There always has, there always was, there always will be one God. Okay, Tybal, and then we're going to stop.
This is a while back and it may not be helpful, but I just wanted to remind you that in human courts, there's a function called the herald, who first gets everybody's attention and then does proclamations, because part of the hierarchy is the king doesn't do all the the king proclaims to the herald, and then the herald tells everybody. And that way back when, something you said reminded me as if the author of the psalm might be like a herald.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. Yes. That kind of a role. I mean, you have the same thing in the yeshivot, where both in Tannaitic and Amoraic times, in the rabbinic period, where if it was a large group, the rabbi did not speak out loud. He would speak to his heralds, and it could be one, it could be two, it could be more, depending upon the size of the group, and they would publicly pronounce the words of God, of the rabbi. It was unseemly that the rabbi should have to raise his voice. So he had all these other guys, his human microphones, who would amplify his words for him. Same kind of thing. It's unseemly that the boss raise his voice. So it's possibly the same kind of thing here. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll come back and start from the beginning and next time. And we're one session behind time, but I don't care, because these songs, this guy as well. It is loaded, absolutely loaded. Okay. Maybe we can finish it all next time, though. We'll see.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.